The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, and thank you for joining us on part 2 of our 5-part board certification series, Brick by Brick. Today's presenters are myself, Donna Sarvello. I am the VP of Educational Support for NCBTMB. I have been in the massage profession for over 20 years. I began as a massage therapist, moved into teaching at a massage therapy school, and now I'm with NCBTMB for 10 years. With me today is Doug Nelson. Hi, Doug. Tell us a little bit about yourself.
Well, first, thank you so much for inviting me to join the conversation with you today. So I have been a therapist. Actually, April this year was my beginning of 43 years in the profession. And as a therapist, as an educator, I'm also the current president of the Massage Therapy Foundation, which is great. But you know, for me, first and foremost is always about being a clinician. That is heart and soul to who I am, just being in the clinic and seeing a lot of people every week. And it's a privilege to be able to do that.
So isn't this year Massage Therapy Foundation's 30th year?
Yeah, we just had a birthday actually, with balloons and like everything. So it was our 30th anniversary on August the 3rd. That's when, at least when the charter was signed, creating the nonprofit. So it was a milestone birthday, and it was fun. We just had an event on the 3rd, looking back at all that was over 30 years, kind of both looking back at all that has happened and all the accomplishments, but also looking forward to see what's coming next. So yeah, it was a really fun event.
Excellent. So today we're going to talk about communication in 3 domains: clients, peers, and healthcare professionals. We're going to explore communication and HIPAA laws, verbal and nonverbal cues, intake and notation formats, and social media interactions. Doug, tell us the importance of communication with clients.
You know, it's essential to make communication skills front and center. And when I think, Donna, about the successful, really successful therapists I know, the one attribute that they all share is that they are amazing communicators. In all sorts of ways, they are adept at making connections with people. In the hands-on work, you're really having a communication with the person's nervous system. We have as well. There are so many ways that we are connecting with people, and all of that is in the broad category of communication. You know, in the kind of client-therapist relationship, I mean, that's one thing, but when you have that personal connection, that ability to connect with another human being, it is a human-to-human connection. Sometimes I'm thinking about Yo-Yo Ma, you know, the cellist, and what he talks about. First and foremost, he's a human being. Secondly, he's a musician. Thirdly, he's a cellist. And I think about that. It's inspiring to me because, again, as I said, you know, a big part of my identity is I'm a massage therapist, and I'm really proud of that. But first, you know, I'm a human being, and we see other humans, and we connect on a really, you know, deep level, so that we understand sort of the human condition, and that's really important. Once that's established, everything else that flows from that, Donna, is can be real and authentic, and I think that's what people respond to. And I think we've all had that experience in any kind of service industry, whether it's you know, checking in at a hotel or something. You can tell when somebody's going through the motions, and when somebody looks you right in the eye and connects with you, and you feel like, wow, it's a totally different experience. And you know, in that environment, it makes the experience better. But in this environment, it's something I think, far more important, because really, when someone walks in, I'm doing this from my treatment room. I'm looking at my treatment door, and you know, many hundreds of people have walked through that door, sat over in the corner, you know, where the client sits, and they've never met me before, and yet, you know, so they're bringing kind of their most vulnerable, like I'm struggling with this particular musculoskeletal condition. They're bringing that vulnerability to someone they've never met before. Like, oh my goodness, what a privilege that is to have somebody do that. So we have to establish a relationship first before anything can happen on the table that would be successful. And I think, and that's where in the slide, you know, about trust, unless you have that, the technical stuff that follows is probably going to struggle, because if we don't have that relationship established first, me actually addressing the tissue on the table is it's going to be a tough row to hoe, because you haven't established the connection, and really that connection, as much as I'm glancing to my left at my treatment door, it didn't actually start there. I mean, when did it start? It probably started on their first phone call. So when they called the office, their perception of the office really was my front desk, and how they were greeted, but also on the phone, and the questions that were asked, and the warmth in that voice. And when they walked in the door, what's the first thing they saw when they walked in the office? Who did they talk to? Did somebody act like, I'm happy to see you today? All those things set up the context for what is to follow. And in the world of the current understanding of pain, you know, the amount of pain somebody experiences is largely due to the amount of threat that's kind of embedded in that. So all of these things, the ability to communicate, creates a level of safety and understanding that just sets the context for really successful therapy to happen. It is so important to set the context, and that is largely about communication. And I think we've all seen the other side of it. You know, maybe I'll just pick on physicians. It could be our profession as well. Somebody who's technically incredibly proficient, but lacks the communication skills, it's really hard to be successful.
You know, I love everything that you said. I just want to pinpoint one thing, that communication does begin, first contact is that phone call. Because in my experience, just talking to different physicians or going in for a massage, that person on the other side of the phone, when they're happy and cheery and act like they want to speak to me, it makes me feel so much better going to that appointment.
Isn't it funny? I mean, but it is really true. It just sets the stage. And if that is not good, you kind of in your head, you have the, whoa, I'm not sure what's going to happen here. So you see it through that lens. But if it's warm and inviting and understanding, you feel like, man, I can't wait to, you know, if that was the hors d'oeuvre, I can't wait to see what the entree looks like, you know?
Exactly.
You know, but so setting the stage is really important. And that's why for therapists who practice by themselves, you know, making sure those skills are good. If you're in an office, celebrate your front desk person, because they have an enormous role in making everything work.
Yep, thank you. Okay, next, tell us the importance of communication regarding treatment.
Yeah. So, you know, a lot of when we talk about massage, right? People have in their head, like if I remember saying this to a group of students, like when I say the word massage, what comes in your mind? Oh my gosh, the wide range of ideas, everything from, you know, snoozing and relaxing to like, you know, hyper precise therapy, and everything in between. The client doesn't really know what to expect. We do, because we do it every day, right? But they do not. So it's really important that we sit down with them and explain, like once we hear their, you know, what their expectations are, then we need to describe how we're going to respond to that. And is that what you want? So, you know, one of the things, you know, I'll say to people is, if you walk out that door and you say, oh my gosh, that was like the most amazing thing I could ever imagine, like what would have happened? You know, tell me what it is that would meet that criteria, because that's the target we're shooting for. Oftentimes, when communication is left up in the air, what the client is thinking is, boy, I hope they get to whatever, you know, and for the therapist, it's really hard to hit a target that you don't know about, right? Like if I knew that's what you wanted me to focus on, I'd have done that, but you have to tell me. And I think clients need to know that this isn't just some routine that you do, but this can be tailored to what you say. But if you don't say anything, it's really hard for me to be successful. And I know what I perceive, right, when I'm feeling the tissue, but I do not know what you're experiencing. So I need your feedback. It's really important that you let me know that. And then once you lay everything out, like oftentimes I'll do a percentage thing. Like, so am I hearing you correctly that you'd like to spend like 60% of the time on your neck and shoulders and upper back, and then, you know, this percentage on that and this percentage on that? And so if they say, yeah, but I was kind of thinking it is, they get to drive, really. And now we've established, here's what I'm going to do. And they agree to that. Now, formally, that's right, the consent. But it's really, it just makes sense, right? You're just establishing, is this where we want to go? Because we're going to go there together. And you have to do that in a way that resonates with whatever their understanding is. So embarrassingly, so yesterday I was kind of explaining in terms and then found out, oh, you know, the client was a doctor. It's like, oh, well, all right. So let's change that a little bit, right? So at whatever level their understanding is, you have to meet them at that level. And again, that's part of the communication process is what is their understanding like, and what do they perceive? And then, you know, HIPAA, that's a word that oftentimes that people think about and they think, oh, it's just some like thing that's, you know, foisted upon us. But actually, it just makes so much sense, really, when you think about it. It's all about trust. That client knows that anything they say in the session is absolutely and completely in confidence, and that, you know, that trust will never be betrayed. That's an important thing to developing the right context for trust and safety. It just makes sense.
It does, and we all have to be careful. I remember in my past, when I had just first started giving massage, I was at a pool party and I was talking about one of my clients on the table, and she was an Italian woman with a very deep accent. And I was describing, because she was so cute, how she would always come in and talk, and how she was so sweet, and how we would always have to work on her sacroiliac joint, and she loved saying that word. Come to find out, her daughter was sitting across the picnic table from me at the pool party.
Yeah.
And she said, you're working on my mom. And so we have to be careful of that too.
Yeah. You know, Donna, that's your experience, and we've all got our own horrifyingly embarrassing story that we've done in the past, that we've all crossed that line. And yeah, I have mine as well. So, you know, we've all made that mistake, and these guidelines are just things to keep us focused. You know, it's the kind of North Star that we are working toward, and it's really for the protection of the client and also for ourselves.
Yes. Okay. When we think of communication, we think of verbal communication, but there are also nonverbal communication clues as well.
You know, there are, and I don't think that we think about that enough. In fact, you know, I was just talking the other day, Donna, with someone who teaches at the medical school here, and you know, they too, in this whole subject that you and I are talking about, medical schools across the country are really trying to see how can we teach better communication skills, you know, to our, you know, upcoming physicians, and the nonverbal thing is also really, really interesting because, again, when we talk about communication, we assume that it's verbal, but there is a ton of communication that is nonverbal as well. And it's like, there are actually two things. One of which is, obviously, when we're treating somebody, we are perceiving as we are treating the tissue, how that tissue is responding to us. So that's kind of the obvious nonverbal communication. But clients, even before they get on the table, are also communicating with us in a nonverbal way in terms of body language, in terms of facial expressions. Several times, you know, if they're describing their symptoms and then I say, well, do you mean this? I can see it in their face right away. It's like, no, that's not what they mean, you know, because they give you that, no, you're clueless look. It's like, okay, explain, like, how did I get that wrong? You know, it's not like they're going to come out and say, no, you're clueless. They're just going to give me that little look with their eyes, and then you can say, maybe guide me on this. If you miss those signs, then, and they don't say anything, you know, the train has left the tracks and nothing good is going to come of that. And through, yes, on the table, it's really important to be able to kind of listen and read how their body responds, but especially before the table happens, you know, in talking with them, those things are really important. And the other thing, every time we talk about this, like if I say, Donna, let's talk about assessment in massage therapy, right? And I bet you have an idea of what I mean when I say that. But I think what we all forget is that we are assessing the client. They are assessing us at the same time. You know, like we like to think that we're the ones doing the assessing, but oh no, they are actually looking at us and making all these assessments about who is this person, what is their skill level. You know, I mean, they're making all these assessments about us at the same time. So what kind of body language are we projecting to them? What are our eyes saying? It's not just what comes out of your mouth. You know, that's, you know, words are sometimes easy, but your physical portrayal is oftentimes more accurate. And boy, don't we know that in regular communication stuff. What you say is easy. Actions are a lot tougher. And it's kind of, you know, it just reminds me of one of my favorite communication quotes, which is, the problem with communication is the illusion it actually happened. You know, so I think we need to pay attention to the messages that we're giving clients and that are coming non-verbally.
You know, I love doing these with you, these webinars with you, because you bring me back to real world scenarios. So my mom has to have double hip replacements, and I have to go with her to all of her doctor's appointments to make sure she gets in. Her surgeon is amazing. She's a young woman and she's absolutely amazing, top of her class. She never has any problems. And we were in the room and she was discussing with my mother and myself what the hip replacement is going to, or what's going to happen, how they take the old bone out and how they put the new metal in. And her body language was very stiff, and it reminded me of somebody that didn't want to be in the room. However, she answered every single question very, very thoroughly, and her voice was very welcoming. But I went through stages of wanting to get out of that room and wanting to stay in that room the entire time she was speaking.
Isn't that interesting? Right. So like part of you was picking up this little discrepancy between what I'm hearing and what I'm seeing. Right.
Exactly.
So yeah. So, but again, if both of those things are in sync, and all of it presenting itself as like, this is going to be an amazing experience, how much more would that be instead of that little hesitation that somehow you can't shake in your brain, right? And so again, I think if we all pay attention to these things, I think good things happen when you pay attention to them, because at least when you pay attention to it, you realize you have a choice.
Yes. Okay, let's talk about the importance of communication in regards to other healthcare providers.
Yeah, I think one of the things is that we just need to speak the same language. You know, a couple of years ago, I met, it was kind of a funny chance thing. It's really funny. I was speaking at this National Chiropractic Convention, but obviously I'm not a chiropractor. And so this guy came over and started talking to me and said, you know, what are you doing? This was in the hotel, like lounge the night before, and said, you know, what are you doing? Well, I'm speaking tomorrow. Oh, are you a chiropractor? No. Really? Then why would you be speaking, right? And he's like, why would they ask you to speak? And and so I'm explaining what I'm doing, and then he started laughing. Turns out he was the then national president of the Chiropractic Association, just messing with me, right? But then we got into this really cool conversation about oftentimes like massage therapists in chiropractic offices and chiropractors, it doesn't often mesh well because they're not speaking the same language and they don't know, the perspective that the other one is coming from. And we just had this amazing connected conversation about how to kind of bridge that world. And that's just one example. But, in any situation that you are in, you just need to communicate to allied healthcare professionals in a way that is understandable by them. And that's also why I'm so interested in the research realm and the kind of the language of science. Only like if I wanted to fully experience what French culture is, I probably need to speak the language. I mean, I can go there as a tourist and do some other things, but I'm never going to fully embrace it and never be embraced and never fully understand the culture and understand what it has to offer if I do not speak the language. And I can't go there and then be upset because people don't understand me and what I have to offer, right? Because then that's all about me. In service, we need to speak the language of those which we are serving with. And that's why I think, medical terminology, documentation formats, all these things, whatever the structure is in the environment you're in, we need to know those things and follow those things. It just builds for better communication so that we can both understand them and they can understand us. And it goes both directions.
Okay. What is the importance of communication with our peers?
Yeah, Donna, so in that same way, the notes that we write, we need to do it in a way that if anybody else, like my office I have 20 therapists, and so, oftentimes people are seeing not just the same therapist all the time, but they're seeing different therapists. If they can just glance at the notes, each of the therapists, and go, oh, that's what they did. It has to be in a way that's understandable so that it can be reproducible, so that we all understand, oh, this is what is done, this is what happened, and this is what I might want to take from that and how we proceed from there. So I think it just provides support for each other. And in that way, it's really interesting. I have many friends in the psych world, and in fact, every one of them that I'm thinking of now, they all have these peer mentoring groups where they get together and support each other and learn from each other and grow. I think that's really important, and we probably don't do a great job of that in our profession. I know there's some movement toward that. We need to find ways. There are too many islands in our profession, and as a friend of mine, an artist named Ping Chong, said, all islands connect underwater. And we need to find ways to help people connect with each other and support each other. And again, it necessitates great communication. And but at the same time, we need to maintain the privacy of other people when we're in the presence of clients. So again, we're back to the HIPAA thing, and you just need to be really careful about that.
Yeah, and we've been talking about creating communication with peers as long as I remember, which is, over 21 years. We need to actually start doing that and comparing notes as we move forward.
Yeah, I mean, I've been part of some amazing national conferences lately, and it's really interesting. Allied health professions out there really interested in what we have to give. It's important to have those communication skills. This profession has something to offer, but you must offer it in an understandable and relatable way.
Yes. So something near and dear to all of our hearts, what's the proper way to communicate on social media?
Well, I think the first thing that we all need to remember is when you put it out there, it's out there, right? So, be very careful about anything that you post relative to the business or seeing clients. Obviously, never using their name, but even you just need to be really careful about that because everyone can see this. And I have to say, as a clinic owner, we've had people apply, to work here, and, the first thing we'll do is take a peek at their social media page. And if it looks like embarrassing, I don't care what they say. They're not part of my office, because, it just doesn't bode well. You need to keep your professional life and your personal life separate in that way. And just remember that in a way, you represent the profession when you put it out there. And especially if you're the tone and tenor of those kinds of comments, everyone, the world can see this. And so just keep that in perspective whenever you're on social media.
Yeah, even if you delete your account, your pictures and information is still up there and visible.
Yeah. It's a sobering thought, so be judicious about what you put out there.
Okay, and how can communication skills help build a practice that is truly fulfilling?
Donna, in ways that I certainly, if you're someone new to the profession and you're listening to the two of us talk, one of the things that I would say to you is that this profession, this privilege that we have to work with people, it's at a profound personal level. And I can represent that in ways, just lately I've been to a few memorial services for clients of mine. And, sitting in the audience, I don't know what to say, I would hear, the clergy talk about this person. I would hear family members. And Donna, I'm telling you, I would sit in that audience and think, I knew this person at a personal level that probably few people in this audience did, And what a privilege that is. I never saw that coming. I didn't expect the relationship part of it to be so rich. I don't know what I thought, but I never expected that. And when we are in this kind of connected relationship with people, you on that human to human basis, you learn things, you see people in their life struggles, when you celebrate with them when amazing things happen, you commiserate with them when terrible things in life happen. You are part of that, and especially if you have long-term clients. And that also, it's a privilege to be part of that in someone else, but in another way, it makes it, our own personal growth is richer and deeper for having been in relationship with somebody. And I think we all know that in our personal life. When you have a connected relationship with somebody, it is you that benefits from that, and we grow as a person. So I think all those are very powerful reasons to constantly and continually develop our communication skills. It's an endless process, and it's worth the journey.
Perfect. So to contact us for more information, you can visit www.ncbtmb.org or email us at info.ncbtmb.org. We also have additional resources, a study guide for our board certification, an outline, and an online practice resource at our shop.ncbtmb.org/forms and tools. I also want to plug in, because Doug is with us, of course, and as the president of the Massage Therapy Foundation, if you need additional research materials and you want to find out what's happening and update yourself on the latest research, please visit www.massagetherapyfoundation.org. Doug, thank you so much for joining us. This was wonderful.
It's a privilege, and really I appreciate having the conversation. And again, from all of us in the profession, thank you to NCBTMB for all the good work you do. It's deeply appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you.